Today we're going to be taking a look at a complete build on the new Prime REVEX 2. Just a reminder guys, head on over to mikesarchery.com to pick up any of our latest logo gear. We got plenty of hats and shirts, as well as any gear you might need for your next adventure. Welcome back to Mike's Archery's YouTube, and today we're going to do something a little different than what we normally do. This is not a bow review. This is going to be a complete bow build. We're here with one of our pro staffers, Nick Basil, and he is one of the Prime ambassadors from the factory, and so we're going to be setting up one of his new REVEX 2s with a complete bow build of all the Prime accessories and then his choice of a couple other accessories. So from the start, we're going to obviously start with the REVEX 2 that he ordered. It's going to be a 70-pound bow build at 29-inch draw, and then we're going to include the new Prime shift lock quivers with their new quiver mount bracket, also the Prime Hamsky arrow rest, so that's going to be a nice addition there. And then he's picked out a couple other accessories, being an HHA with an ultra view scope on the front of it, and then we're going to throw on some AAE bars on this bow. So let's jump back to the press and get started on building this bow. So we've stepped back here and we've got the bow mounted up into a vise, and we're just going to get started with a basic setup, get a few things mounted to the bow. Right off the bat, we're going to start off with mounting the rest on there. That just kind of gets us a center point once we get all that mounted to be able to work and get all the things set up properly. So this new Prime Epsilon is not an integrated rest. It's still going to mount to your standard bolt hole. That's the way Prime designed it, but it is nice and sleek. All right, so before we started, we went ahead and put the felt on the rest. Got that basic stuff on there because it's a lot easier to get that on the rest while it's not in a vise and not working on it. This is a limb driven rest. It's going to come off the bottom limb, and one of Prime's features is it's going to mount into your axle down there, so rather than have to tie around the limb like a lot of different limb driven styles, it's just going to be a little easier to mount down there the way they've got it set up. So we're going to get things leveled up here with an arrow, get our knock height going. That way we know where this arrow needs to be, and then we'll be able to serve everything in. So give me just a second here, we'll get everything marked, and then we'll show you the serving process and tying in the loop. So let me get a level on there so we can get this leveled out properly. And then we're going to mark it. So we've got our arrow level there. Give us a mark on the top and the bottom of that knock, and that's going to allow us to tie in our serving knots before we put on the D-loop. So now that we've got it marked here, we're going to go ahead and start tying in the serving knots top and bottom. Pretty simple process. We start off with a double overhand there, just loop it through twice, and then that'll cinch it down for the first one. Get that nice and tight. And then you're just going to go back and forth top and bottom doing single overhands. So you're going to do that 3 times, top and bottom. Then when you finish out the top, double knot that in, and then finish off with another square knot on top. Then you can just burn those off. You're going to do that same top and bottom. So once we finish those up, that gives us our spacing for our knock, and then we can tie on our D-loop where we had everything marked. So we're going to burn the ends nice on our D-loop, tie that in top and bottom with our clove hitches. Just going to double check a few things here. The vise looks good. We'll get the center shot set here in just a few minutes. But actually looks like most of these integrated rests that come for specific bows are pretty well set from the factory, and it's a matter of tweaking them once you start shooting. Overall looks good for the start here. So now that we've got the serving knots tied in, the loop tied in, next we're just going to finish up tying the rest in. We've already checked the knock height before we tied that in, and then checking center shot. As we said, most of these rests come pretty well set to 3/4 of an inch, 13/16 right there somewhere, which is kind of a really good starting point for most bows. So now this system that they have used with the Hamsky Epsilon, limb driven, and it's going to replace their axle cap down here. So rather than being just a standard tie to the limb situation with a pad or something, you can actually tie this into the limb cap. So you're just going to remove one side, depending on which side you need to remove, right or left-handed, and you just unthread that axle off the end, and then just replace that axle cap with the cap that comes with it from Prime and Hamskea. And that just gives you a nice place to tie that off to. Makes a nice simple installation. Snug that back into place on the axle. So you just tie off down here to the axle, tying it in like you normally would with a clove hitch or a taut line. There's a couple different options you could tie off down here with. Trim that and burn it, and then you can adjust from the top with their little adjustable clamp there. And you've got your dampener in the middle of the string. Makes a real nice setup. Makes it real easy to install. That's one of the things we like about limb-driven rests, is just the ease of installation. You're not have to split a cable or serve anything in. You're not have to have that football on your cable. Limb-driven rests have several advantages there. One of which we like is the ease of setup. So you snug that down, get your rest pulled down out of the way, and then of course you got your option here if things start to stretch or you have any issues there, you can continue to just tighten that up as things change. So from there, we're going to step over here and throw this on to the draw board, and we're just going to check the poundage. He's wanting to shoot this at about 70 pounds. It's pretty well maxed out. May have a half turn out of it or so. We're going to check the timing while we're at it as well. Throw this on the draw board, make sure everything's in time just before we start getting into some tuning issues. So we'll let this zero out so we get an accurate read on the weight. All right, so right now this bow's coming in at 69 pounds even. Like I said, it looks like we got about a half turn or so we could get a little more out of if we needed to. So coming in full 29-inch draw as it should be, holding as you pull through about 12-13 pounds. And then you just can back this off just a hair and check the timing. And it appears to be pretty well spot on. So that's always nice when we get a bow out of the box from the factory and not a lot of tuning or twisting of the cables there. So everything looks really good there. If it is something you had to check or deal with, then most certainly you throw that in the press, put a twist into a cable here and there to get that to time out right. But otherwise, this bow coming out from the factory, looking good in spec and ready to go. So we're headed in the right direction here. We've got our rest now mounted, center shot, knock point, everything's in place to move on to some of the other accessories. So we'll move over to mounting our sight as well as some quiver and stabilizer accessories here. So Nick has chose to pick out a new HHA Tetra, and we mounted an Ultra View housing on that for him. So we're going to go ahead and mount that up. We got the bracket here. You got the short bar dovetail, so that makes it nice and compact setup. Just a couple simple screws mounting any other sight. It's not any different. You just got to mount the bracket on a dovetail. So we'll get that on the riser. And anytime you're working on a bow, just don't, you want to keep everything snug, but you don't want to over tighten or strip out any bolts or anything. So just kind of check those and get them good and snug. That gets everything set up and ready to go. All right, so the next piece is the Prime quiver. Now Prime has got their own quiver bracket system. It's somewhat of an integrated system on the back of their riser. It's not going to mount to your regular screw holes here on the back of the sight bracket or anything. It's a form-fitted bracket, and they've got a hole drilled specifically into the riser of their bow, and that brings everything in nice and tight. That's something Prime kind of following suit with what we've seen from some of the other manufacturers as far as putting a inline system, getting everything in tighter. This just allows a little different way of getting there with this new bracket. And it is a shift lock. It's a partnership between Tight Spot and Prime. Got the Prime logos on there, so it matches all the Prime colors and everything. So once you get everything mounted there, it's just a real easy, quick detach system there. Same as all the Tight Spots, works real nice and smooth. So at this point, we probably got all the basics mounted here to get us started. And we're going to pull this out, and you can kind of see how everything mounts in there real nice. Get everything just kind of lined up best we can without breaking out the tools yet. Then we'll step over the press here. We're going to throw a peep in it, have Nick pull this back and show us where it needs to be, get it set specifically for him, and then get that served in. So we've stepped over here to the press, And we're gonna drop this new prime in here, get everything adjusted for it. Nick's just putting a standard 3/16 peep into it, so nothing crazy special. Just a nice hunting size peep, which is about the norm for everybody. Pull out that factory string that they got in there, and then you just want to set that peep in there, kind of get a general idea when you do enough of them as to where they need to be and the direction they need to be. If you're ever working at a press, always keep a little tension on things so stuff doesn't come loose and out. And now we'll step over the lane, have Nick draw this back, just give us an idea of where the peep needs to be, if we were too high or too low. And then we'll get this served in there for him. All right, so we're going to have Nick go ahead and grab this here, grab an arrow, and we're going to accomplish a couple things at once here. One, we're going to check his peep, also check the length of his arrow and get those marked while we're at it, because these are full-length arrows. I just want to get him set up. So we're using safety release here. It doesn't have a trigger, just to be safe here in the shop. And then draw length should be set on this, and we're just going to have him give us an idea where we need to be on this peep to start with. So go ahead and draw that back for me, Nick. How close are we there?
Still need to go up a little.
Still just a little bit. All right. We'll have you let down and draw back one more time for me. We like double check just to make sure everything's where the customer wants it. He's going to draw back, set his anchor, make sure everything's rotating around here.
Yep, that's it.
That's it. All right. So from a sight picture standpoint, we're looking for that peep, rounding out the sight housing, getting everything squared up and being able to see through it. One more time for me, Nick, and I'm going to mark that arrow while we're here, and we'll get those arrows cut for you at the same time. So, and for this, we like to be out in front of the riser just a little bit. Some customers may want it someplace different. You're good. But that's where we like to be, is keep the arrow out in front of the riser a little bit. That way, if you're shooting a fixed blade broadhead, everything's out in front of your hand. Just keeps everything safer and easier to work with. So we're going to step over and serve this peep in for him now, and also cut his arrows. So the next step in the process is to serve this peep in. I like to mark my peeps before I start serving on, just make sure that nothing moves while you're serving, because you can sometimes get pressure one direction or the other. So just a little mark there where the center of the peep needs to stay at. And then we'll just start a basic serve from bottom to top. We are using BCY 3D, just in case you're wondering what we're using. There's a lot of different serving options out there, whether you want a thinner serving or something a little thicker. At this point, we're just going to start at the bottom of the peep, get a few wraps around the tail of it there. I think we do have a peep serving video online if you want to jump on there and kind of see what we're doing. I think we've got one on there that shows you 3 different ways to serve in a peep, but we usually get about 5-6 wraps around that tail just so we know it's in there, not going to move. A few more wraps above it, 4 or 5 usually, and then we'll start through the center. I like to usually go up the light side, just makes it look a little better, a little contrast in the serving string there. Usually takes 2 to 3 wraps below, and then another 2 to 3 above. Just depends on the size of the peep and what you're working with here. But once you get up there, then we're just going to finish it out with the same wraps that we started with, and then do a reverse wrap back over top of it to lock everything in. So that peep is not coming out of there. You don't have to worry about it popping out on the shooter, and you also don't have to worry about that peep moving at any point in time. So at this point, you've got it served in there. Now it's a matter of getting the twist back right. So that takes a little bit of time, drawing it back a few times, playing with the loop, just to make sure that that peep is coming around square every single time. So guys, we went ahead and cut off his arrows. Used the G5 arrow squaring device, the ASD flip, kind of squared those ends up, make sure the inserts are in there properly, glued everything in, got everything set up. We're going to have Nick shoot this thing through paper now and see what kind of bullet holes it puts and if we need to make any adjustments. So go ahead and take a shot through the paper there, Nick. Perfect bullet hole. So can't beat that right out of the box. We just set everything up, shot a perfect bullet hole first time. He is shooting those new Mark 203s from G5, so they've come out with a new arrow. Him being on the pro staff with those guys, he's shooting a 300 spine in that 203 diameter arrow, and with his setup, just flying great. I think it was, what, a 512 grain arrow or something like that when we threw it on the scale. So nice heavy arrow. He's going to be able to hunt elk, deer, anything with that, and have plenty of punch. G5 makes it really simple. If we did have to tune on this bow and mess with it, they've got that C-clips shim system in there. We could just toss that in the press, back those axles out just a little bit, pop those shims, swap them around, been real simple to tune, but this one's shooting bullet holes out of the box, so that's what we like to see. All right, so last thing but not least, we kind of want to know what this bow is shooting as far as speeds. So we pulled out the chronograph. These Mark 203 arrows are coming in at 516 grains. We just threw them on the scale there, as you can see, and we just want to see at 70 pounds, 29-inch draw length, 85% let off in this setup, just kind of where it put it on speed. So go ahead, Nick, shoot it through the chronograph there, and we'll get a number on this. So 265, not bad for a 516 grain arrow. You know, 265 is a really nice number. That's going to have a ton of kinetic energy, ton of knockdown power, plenty of penetration for anything. So overall, just a great setup here. It was a joy to put this Prime together, and I think Nick's going to be happy with it. It's shooting really well. I think he's enjoying shooting it already here in the shop. He can't wait to get it home. So if you're looking for a new Prime or some of these new Mark arrows from G5, then give us a call here at Mike's Archery, and we'll be glad to set you up with a full outfit from G5 and Prime.